If you've ever heard someone speak in a meeting and thought they sound so confident, or gosh, they really know their stuff if they sound like that. And maybe you were impressed by that and thought to yourself, I want that. Maybe you question the way you sound when you speak and you just want to sound more confident when you deliver. Some of my clients, they've listened to recordings of themselves, and maybe you have too, and thought, gosh, that just sounds awful. Is that how I sound? Well, if that's you and you want to sound more confident when you speak and present at work, then in this video, we're going to talk through the 5 things you need to get right to sound more confident when you speak and present at work, so that when you do, you come across with more credibility, more believability, and with more confidence, even if you're a bit nervous or maybe downright terrified. Now, before we jump into the 5 things, let me say a quick point. Obviously, preparation matters because sounding confident doesn't mean winging it. And look, in my experience, after 12 years working at Coca-Cola and 20 in corporate America, and then coaching hundreds of professionals one-on-one to more confidence, the people who sound the most confident usually walk in knowing 3 things. 1, why they're there, or what we call their purpose. 2, they know the key message they want the audience to leave with. And 3, they know their outlined flow for delivering to that key message. That's it. So when they walk in, they've answered the question in the prep, why am I here? What am I here to do? They don't think about every sentence and memorize it, or they don't think about every possible question having figured those out. They simply know where they're going, like a good roadmap helps you land at your final destination. And once you have those things, these are the next 5 things so that you sound dramatically more confident, professional, and like you're the one who knows your stuff. You're the one who's the expert in the room. And these things will help you build your reputation and your career. Now, the first thing confident speakers do is they start strong. They start their presentation strong. Now, when I say start strong, they don't come out powerfully. I mean, they come out with clarity and direction. And that's important because most people's nerves are the highest as soon as they start speaking, right at the very start of any meeting or any presentation. So if you have a trusted, repeatable opening framework, it's going to help you get in, get engagement, and reduce the nerves almost immediately. Now, compare that to how most people start. Thanks everyone for joining. We'll give everybody a minute. Let me go through the agenda. Or they jump straight into slide 1. I've seen all of these. None of those approaches create much direction for your audience. So instead, I want you to use a simple framework: context, purpose, and then when. So for context, based on how much the audience knows walking in, why are we here? What's the background? What's the problem we're solving? And then purpose. It's that tried and true statement of today we're going to talk about, but put a little context before your purpose. Now let me talk about the when. The when is the goal that most people leave out, which in turn, when you leave it out, the audience has this question: okay, what are we here to do? What's the outcome of this meeting that makes this time spent worthwhile? Imagine hearing this. Here's some context. As you know, customer acquisition costs have increased significantly over the last 2 quarters, while conversion rates have remained relatively flat. Okay, now I know the context. Purpose. Today, I want to walk you through 3 changes to our marketing that we're testing so we can improve lead quality and lower our acquisition costs. Now here's the win. The goal of the conversation is that you're in the know and provide feedback before we fully implement it. Imagine hearing that opening as a leader. That's a confident opening. It's not fancy, it's clear, it's simple. Everybody understands the situation, the purpose, and the desired outcome, or the context, purpose, and when. And one more thing, instead of building to your point, which is great in storytelling and novels and legal cases, lead with your point. Get it out there early. Confident speakers don't make people hunt for the answer. Imagine hearing, my recommendation is that we shift 20% of our budget away from channel A and to channel B for the next 2 weeks because we're seeing significantly stronger lead quality and lower acquisition costs. Now you know what the bottom line is. Now you know exactly where you're going. That's what confident speakers do. They create clarity early. And again, when people know where you're going, they naturally perceive you as more confident, more organized, and more credible. Now, the second thing confident speakers do is they actually slow down. Now, you may have experienced this. You feel rushed when you speak to get it all out. And what's interesting is when people get nervous, they almost always speed up because their heart rate's elevated, their mind's really sharp, and they're trying to get through the material in a quick amount of time So with the adrenaline pumping so fast and the brain's moving really fast, the result is they sound rushed. And when you sound rushed, you sound less confident, even when you know your material. And in my coaching experience, after coaching hundreds of people, one of the biggest surprises people have is when they watch themselves on video and realize how fast they're speaking. They don't feel fast, but they sound fast. And here's the problem with that. The goal isn't just to get through the information. The goal is to help your audience process it, which includes letting people's brains absorb the information. So imagine hearing someone say something like this. We looked at 3 different options based on the data, so we think the option 2 might give us the best combination of lower cost, higher customer satisfaction, and faster implementation. Now compare that to, we looked at 3 different options, and based on the data, we believe option 2 gives us the best combination of lower cost and higher customer satisfaction for faster implementation. It was the same sentence, same recommendation, completely different impact because of the understanding. One felt rushed, the other felt deliberate. And people often interpret deliberate as confidence. So if you want to sound more confident today, slow down, let the audience catch up, and give people time to think. Because speaking and presenting isn't a performance, it's best thought of as a good conversation. And the best leaders I've worked with don't rush people through ideas, they guide people through them. And if you have the mindset that this is a conversation, then here's something else confident speakers do. They sound conversational. And this is where a lot of professionals get tripped up. They know they're speaking at work. They want to sound articulate. So they start using big words. And let's be honest, corporate words are just jargon, and they create longer sentences and they're writing them out and they think it makes them sound smarter. But it often does the exact opposite. The people who sound the most confident, don't miss this. The people who sound the most confident are often the people who make the complex ideas simple and easy to understand. I still remember a VP I worked for at Coke telling me the best thing we can do for the C-suite is distill all our analysis down and help them understand 3 key findings, the implication, and if there is one, the recommendation. Now, think about your world. You've probably heard something come out of someone's mouth like, we're looking to leverage cross-functional synergies in order to optimize stakeholder alignment and improve organizational effectiveness. Maybe you heard that in a town hall at work. Or let's just distill it down. What if it was this? We need these teams working better together so we can make decisions faster and serve our customers more effectively. It's the same basic idea. It's a completely different impact because one sounds like corporate jargon, the other sounds like a human, and people trust people. So here's a simple rule. Speak and prepare to speak like you're talking to a colleague you respect, not like you're writing a legal document. Because showing confidence doesn't come from sounding complicated. It comes from helping people understand complicated things simply. And when people understand you more easily, they trust you more. They have more respect for you. While we're talking about sounding conversational, let's address another mistake I see. People using scripts, meaning you write out everything you want to say or try to memorize every word. Now, I understand why people do this. They think, if I know exactly what I'm going to say, I'll look more prepared and maybe more confident. And I get this. You think, I won't blank out this way. That's a perfectly understandable reason. Let's just hope you don't lose your place on your paper if it's a script. Because if you do, your body's going to have that instantaneous panic, even if not a lot, it's going to spark those nerves. And that's one reason memorization increases people's fear of blanking out. You're no longer focused on the conversation and where it's heading, you're focused on the script. And there's another key problem with scripting. Most people don't write the way they naturally talk. They write to sound smart. They write longer sentences with more formal language and bigger words. And they read it, and it comes out dry and lifeless. Not like someone who's confident in what they're saying. So in our coaching practice, we often talk to people who present on Zoom. Maybe their camera's off, so they think, great, no one can tell that I'm reading. Wrong. People can always tell if you're reading. The result is they sound less like a person and more like they're reading a document. Imagine hearing someone say something like this. Upon further evaluation of the available alternatives, it's become apparent that option 2 represents the most advantageous and synergistic path forward to revenue optimization. No one talks like that. And if they do, you've all rolled your eyes at them. The conversational version of that is this. So after looking at the options, we think option 2 is our best path forward, specifically from a revenue standpoint. Same idea, different delivery. And you may have had it written down, bullet points, but it's not a script. So instead of reading a script, know your purpose, know your key message, your key takeaways, and have a conversation. Okay, But I want to warn you of something. There's a dark side when people stop relying on script, so don't miss this. This one shows up next. When people get off the script, they may be like, so like, maybe you can like figure this out, right? And you probably figured out what I was talking about. Filler words get introduced. Now, filler words aren't credibility killers all by themselves. In a natural conversational tone, there are bound to be fillers. But fillers in your conversation are more like death by 1,000 cuts, especially when you're speaking to people who don't know you. They don't know how much experience you have, how well you know the material, how reliable you are, and how much preparation you've done. They only know what they're hearing in that moment. And a steady stream of fillers can slowly shave away at sounding confident and credible. And here's what most people get wrong. The opposite of a filler isn't perfection. It's a pause. One of the biggest reasons people use fillers is because they're uncomfortable with silence, or they're talking so fast, their mouth is leading their brain versus their brain leading their mouth. So while they're thinking, they fill the space because they are afraid they'll get interrupted. I get told this all the time. I'm afraid I'll get interrupted. But confident speakers do something better. They pause. So imagine hearing this. This is not the great version. So we think we should probably move forward with the option 2, because it gives us the best balance of cost and speed. Now compare that to. So look, our recommendation is to move forward with option 2 because this gives us the best balance of cost and speed. Same thing, completely different impact. One sounds like someone thinking out loud. The other one sounds prepared, thoughtful, and deliberate. And here's the good news. You don't need to get rid of every filler word. That's not the goal. But if you listen back to yourself and you find that you're giving out like 15 fillers per minute, can you get to 8? Okay, if you got 8, now can you get to 4? If you get to 4, can you get to 2? Again, progress, not perfection. So if you go back and listen to yourself for 1 minute, you probably have a little bit of a panic, but you want to get to where a brief pause sounds thoughtful. A string of fillers sounds uncertain. And again, more good news. Reducing the fillers is actually pretty straightforward. In fact, people who get serious about this often make huge strides in 7 business days. They often make strides in a week. And there are 3 things I want you to focus on to reduce your fillers. First, you got to learn to pause. Most fillers happen because we're uncomfortable with silence. We feel like we need to fill every second with sound. But a brief pause sounds thoughtful, and can sound uncertain. Second, you want to practice breathing and speaking words. A lot of people try to think, breathe, and talk all at the same time. So they say things like, and they take these longer breaths. But practice things like, good morning, everyone. I hope you're doing well. Why don't we go ahead and get started? It's practicing breathing and speaking words. Now, a third thing to do is something that helps you and your audience. It's to use transition statements. Transition statements help you say, like, the first thing I want to talk about today, and the next point we want to bring up in conclusion, and just to wrap up for the day. So these phrases, these transition phrases, help you reduce your fillers, but they also help your audience follow along with your material because they're tracking with where you are. Now, imagine just giving people something that helps them navigate where you are. And if you really want to improve this skill, practice answering imaginary questions. Record yourself on the phone, listen back, count your fillers per minute. Most people are shocked when they first hear themselves the first time. It's kind of sobering. But then start working on increasing your pauses. And again, progress, not perfection. Can you go from 15 down to 5? Can you get from 5 down to 2? If you're at less than 2 per minute, I'd let it go. But remember this one word, pause. Before I move to the 5th thing, there's one other thing that I want to talk to you about in terms of the words you use that can impact how confident you sound. And it's what we call hedging language, meaning you use words and phrases that you're trying to be kind and maybe diplomatic, but it's actually weakening your point. Phrases like maybe, if possible, I think, kind of, sort of, I believe, could be wrong, but you're trying not to be too demonstrative or hurt someone's feelings, but you might also be a little bit scared to be wrong. That's okay. You want to remove these and make statements more definitive. Here's an example. I think maybe we should consider moving some budget toward channel B. Well, that gives you one thought. How about this? Based on the data, we should move budget toward channel B for a time and measure the result. Same recommendation, different impact. One sort of wishy-washy, one is more confident, comes across that way. So when you have a point, don't hedge. Think about this specifically when you're trying to make a key point. Practice that key point so that you don't give any hedging language. The next thing confident speakers do when they speak or present is they bring a touch of what we call intentional energy. And this is something people can overlook. Most people spend almost all of their time thinking about what they're saying. Now, you may be having a reaction to this. Just hang with me here. A lot of people think about what they're saying and not how they're saying it. And the reality is people hear both. Now, what percentage? I don't know, but they hear both. Now, when I say energy, I don't mean motivational speaker vibes. All right, guys, here we go. This is what we're gonna do. And I don't mean become someone you're not. I simply mean this. When we believe something matters, we naturally put something behind it. And that's part of what makes someone believable. A lot of people think credibility is all logic. And yes, logic matters. But believability is a combination of your idea and your delivery. One thing I hear all the time from people is, I'm just pretty monotone or I'm pretty dry. That's just how I talk. Now, to be clear, I'm not talking about people who overdo energy. They're probably not watching this video. So here's a simple way to think about it. Imagine the energy scale from 1 to 10. I'm not asking you to become a 10, 9, or even an 8. I'm not asking you to become a motivational keynote speaker. But if you're bringing an idea that matters, you've got to bring at least a 6. You've got to put something behind it. Like if you're more of an informational communicator and you're like at a 4 on your good day, you got to think, I've got to move 2 clicks up. Because people hear what you're saying in both what you say and how you say it. People want to hear that you believe what you're saying. So imagine hearing this. The analysis on this initiative says we could save between $2 to $2.5 million over the next 12 months versus, so the analysis on this initiative says we could save between $2.5 million over the next 12 months. Same words, different impact. And that was about a 6. One sounds more like information. The other one sounds like a positive recommendation, has a little bit of energy, one that leaders can get excited about. And that's what you're after. Not more volume in your voice or more hype, just intentional energy that helps people believe the message that you're delivering. So the next time you speak or present, make sure you're not just regurgitating the information and thinking about the what. Think about the how and bring a little bit of intentional energy. Think to yourself, 1 click up on the dial. Now, another way to think about this is when my kids were younger, we'd go to someone else's house. We'd often have the same conversation in the car before we got there. Most people are comfortable in their own home, but when we walk into a different environment, different people, different expectations, people we don't know, we might tend to be a little bit more shy walking in. And I see this at parents all the time. They say, oh, are you being shy? But look, adults can do it too. So before we get out of the car with our kids, we'd always remind them of one thing. All right, guys, game face. It didn't mean become someone you're not or be fake. It simply meant let's show up well. Put on a smile, engage with people, be interesting, be present. Don't be looking around looking for an exit. Candidly, speaking at work has similarities to this. You're walking into a meeting with senior leaders and you want to sound like you know what you're doing and believable. And the nerves may still be there. That's okay. The goal isn't to eliminate every ounce of nerves. The goal is to show up and put your game face on. Show up intentionally. Now, I just want you to imagine for a moment, someone shows up to present at work and you've never met them. They're presenting in front of you. They open with a strong, clear opening. Everyone knows why they're there, what the topic is, and what the win of the conversation is. The person isn't rushed, meaning they're pausing in moments. They're not super speedy. They speak in simple terms that you can understand. And maybe it's not even your topic, but you're following along because it's simple sentences and you think you're having a conversation with them. And there's pauses, not long ones, just intentional ones. Very few fillers. They get to their point quickly and early, and behind what they say, there's just a little bit of energy. It sounds like conviction. How would you see that presenter? My guess is you'd say they came across pretty confident, like they knew their stuff. Well, the same is possible for you. Now, before you say that's just not me, I recently had someone fly in to work with me who described himself as naturally soft-spoken. And he was. He's smart and he's thoughtful, but he's not someone who would ever dominate the room. And people wouldn't describe him as high energy. One of his biggest takeaways from our time together, working together live one-to-one, was I don't have to become someone else. I can still be me. I just got to show up with a game face on. And that's really what confidence looks like for most professionals. It's not becoming a different person. It's just becoming a more intentional version of yourself when it matters. And notice that none of the things we talked about today required you to eliminate the nerves. Notice that you simply changed how the message was delivered. Think back to that person who you hear present with these characteristics. Chances are they weren't flawless and they weren't fearless, but it all came across confidently. And if you're ready to communicate with more confidence and speak like a leader and the authority in your space that you want to be, I'd love to invite you to our Crush Your Nerves Masterclass. We'll make sure that it's in the show notes below. We'll walk you through the same practical frameworks we use to help professionals reduce their nerves, communicate more clearly, and build real confidence in their meetings and presentations and high stakes conversations. You can find a link for it in the show notes. I hope to see you there.